Kevin Lasagna is dead. Long live the king. Yes, that's right. This is formally, I guess, or this is the reincarnation. This is the phoenix being rebirthed out of the ashes of the Kevin Lasagna Appreciation Podcast. There was a little podcast that I had going talking about the comedic side of this game that we all love. Football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. There's no judgment here. I thought that I would kind of, have a niche grasp on the market of football podcasts by kind of grappling onto Kevin Lasagna, who's a kind of obscure Italian footballer with possibly the best name in the history of names, who has played for Italy 7 times, curiously, a true indictment of how poor the Italian national team has been over the last few years, winning the Euros in 2021, notwithstanding. But it kind of backfired, I think, because I'm looking for some casual peeps. I'm looking for some fun peeps to join me here, and I think Kevin Lasagna a little bit too niche. Also, fuck him. Yeah, I thought that another way to kind of bring people in to this would be to actually get an endorsement from Kevin himself. So I tagged him, or I tagged his Instagram account in some of the first posts that I put out promoting this podcast, or the former podcast, and his Instagram team, his social media team. I don't know if he's got people. I don't know. Him and his 37,000 followers might be, popular enough that he has a social media manager. Either him personally or his social media manager went to the liberty of removing said tag from the post. So didn't want to be involved, even though this devilishly handsome and very knowledgeable and educated about football comedian in Australia had dedicated his entire podcast, or at least the nomenclature of the podcast, to him. So, fuck you, Kevin. I wrote you, but you still ain't calling. That's me, by the way. I'm the said comedian. I'm the guy who I was talking about previously. I'm Anthony Locascio, stand-up comedian and the self-proclaimed football pundit, journalist, expert, whatever you just dude that's chatting about the La Palla, the round ball game. That's what I like to do. That's what I spend my time doing. I go get on stage at night talking about my mum and stuff like that, and during the day I just like to chat and to watch football. So that's what we're here for, and I hope you guys are excited, because we're doing video now. That's what this is. This is the Mr. Sitter podcast now on video. I am Mr. Sitter purely because if anybody that's watching this or listening, in fact, has ever played with me, you'll know that the playing the round ball game was certainly never my forte, and missing sitters, and generally the point of a lot of things in life and in football is kind of my modus operandi. So that's what we're calling this podcast, guys. And I can guarantee you a couple of things. I can guarantee you I'm going to have Vegeta and Del Piero sitting here next to me, helping me along as my co-pilots on this little vessel. I can guarantee you that I'm going to have the angriest, the strangest, and possibly the most entertaining takes on all of the stuff that you guys are loving in the football world at the given point. And crucially, for the next couple of weeks, I am on a comedian's timetable. That means that I am needed for a grand total of 1 hour, including travel time, every single night, which means I have the luxury of being able to watch every single match of the upcoming FIFA World Cup from Qatar. My plan is to get up and watch the 9 p.m. game here in Sydney, in Australia, on the East Coast. We're going to have the 2 a.m. game, and then there's going to be a 7 a.m. game. I'm going to watch them all, and then I'm going to pump out one of these. I'm going to pump out a little video pod for you, explaining what happened, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I'm angry about, what I'm happy about, yada, 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 so that you can listen on your commute to work or whatever, wherever you need to be during the day, so that you can seem knowledgeable to all of your friends and co-workers about what's going on in the World Cup. And, I might even help you with your bets or whatever it is that brings you to watching the World Cup, whether it's to be involved in something, whether it's FOMO. A lot of people just watch sport out of FOMO, and I don't have time for those people, but they might have time for me. So if that's what brings you to this podcast, hey, you can blame all of your lost money on me. That's basically it. Let's have a look. This is the pilot episode. This is the hey, this is what we're doing. It's gonna be short and sweet, half an hour, bang bang bang. I'm trying to aim for half an hour for all of the episodes, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, because you could be spending your time doing other things. You could be at Guzman and Gomez. You could be at Guzman and Gomez listening to this. That would be a good use of your time. But you could be doing absolutely anything. So I appreciate anybody coming back that listened to the clap. A lot of people were asking me where the clap has been for the last few months. Frankly, I was really heartbroken by Kevin Lasagna not jumping on board. So I've been licking my wounds, and I've been preparing to do this. Look at this. We got video. We got like random assortment of football shit on the desk. We've got professional podcast mic. We've got Guy in his living room. We got in a football jersey, no less. This is like everything that every single person that thinks they know about football and wants to do a solo podcast in their living room does. Where mine is different is that I'm funny sometimes, and a lot of these people aren't very funny at all, and that makes me sad. But yeah, let's start. I mean, there's Champions League this week. I'm not sure exactly when. I'm quite technologically retarded, so I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to be posting this first episode. There is Champions League this week, but fuck it, it's the last round. It's boring. The most important teams are already eliminated, so who gives a shit, really? But we'll get onto that in a little bit. I do want to talk about the World Cup, as the World Cup is fast approaching. The World Cup is coming at us strong, like a giant snowball full of like half-dead kittens or whatever would terrify you. It's coming, and it's coming quick. And I think this I mean, the morally deplorable side of this World Cup may be discussed on this podcast throughout the duration of it. I don't know if people are going to enjoy hearing my take on that, because I could probably get very unfunny and very kind of morbid about it, and maybe we don't want that. So we'll see. The audience will dictate where that particular side of it goes. But I think this World Cup is going to be interesting for a few reasons. I think it's going to be a bad World Cup in terms of quality of football. I think it's going to be very, very predictable, but we'll get to that in a couple of weeks when I do my predictions for the World Cup. But I think the most important thing that this World Cup is going to do is it's going to flip everything on its head as far as the season. Never have we had the African Cup of Nations version of the World Cup. Never before have we had the World Cup happen in the middle of the season, and for that reason, I think it's going to flip everything on its head when the season resumes afterwards in January. I think clubs and players that are currently struggling are going to come good. I think they're gonna mount a comeback, and conversely, I think that clubs and players who are currently killing it are going to fall off the wagon pretty hard and pretty fast. Starting with this Almiron guy. This guy who he looks like a character in the Batman animated series who's inhaled the Joker toxin. There's something about his smile and his eyes and his eyebrows that kind of just creeps me out a little bit. Everybody's kind of awash with just love for this guy because he's been on this redemption saga story after Jack Grealish talked shit about him last season for kind of no reason. And he's scoring just goals left, right, and centre for Newcastle, who are flying high in the top 4 as of the time of recording. And I don't like him. Yeah, I don't like this redemption story. I don't like him because other than the face, there's just like there's nothing to his game that I enjoy. He's kind of been in the right place at the right time for all of his goals. The last goal he scored was a wonder goal, sure, but you know. I've scored goals like that against opposition, like maybe not against opposition like Spurs, but you get the point. There's just something about him that doesn't quite tickle me, and it's not because I'm a Jack Grealish homeboy. I hate Jack Grealish even more. This guy who styles himself after Keira Knightley's character in Bend It Like Beckham. He's just a douchebag, man. I hate his hair. I hate how low his socks are. And I hate how he doesn't really put any output on the field. I mean, 100 million euros for Manchester City doesn't really cut the mustard. I reckon this guy's going to run out his contract at Man City and end up right back at Aston Villa. Watch, that's prediction number 1 for the Mr. Sitter podcast. Bang, bang. But back to Almiron. It's like this guy has been turned into this legend. This guy has been made into a positive meme, basically because of Jack Grealish talking shit. But what I don't understand is, what an obscure player to reference to say he's playing like shit, he's playing like Almiron. Because frankly, Almiron, even a year ago, not anywhere near the worst player in the Premier League. Like, wouldn't that be the player that you talk that kind of shit about? I mean, even his teammate at the time, Joel Linton, would have been a worse sledge, given that he was a laughingstock before they decided to play him in his actual position. I just feel like something else is going on here, because it's such a specific, such a niche player to reference when talking shit. Which leads me to believe that it wasn't Jack Grealish that first started saying he's playing like Almiron. I think that every single player in every single team in the Premier League was saying, as a colloquialism, as a sledge, to whomever they wanted to talk shit about, he's playing like Almiron. I reckon that was the go-to insult. I don't know what Almiron did to piss everybody off. I don't know if there was like a video being circulated of him in training, like falling on his ass when they did that like spin with your eyes closed on the penalty spot, or whatever it may have been. Something's amiss about this. It's like he's the dirty little secret of the Premier League. It's like how everyone in Hollywood knew that Bill Cosby was a rapist before Hannibal Buress like rang the bell on him. So Jack Grealish is basically the Hannibal Buress of the Premier League. So I think not only Jack Grealish, and he's kind of like the scapegoat now, but I think the entire Premier League are feeling like idiots for talking shit about Almiron. But like I said, the World Cup, after the World Cup, maybe even in the next couple of weeks, he ain't going to score shit. His hot streak is coming to an end because he's not a great player. We've seen so many streaky players in the Premier League look like gods for a couple of months and then just come crashing straight back down to earth afterwards. Wigan's Ahmed Zaki, 2008. It's a player that I referenced many times on the dearly departed Kevin Lasagna podcast. Ahmed Zaki looked like a world beater as well for a couple of weeks. No one talked shit about him prior to him going on this hot streak, but then he was never heard of again, to the point where I'm sure most of you listening or watching don't know who the fuck he is. The next team that's going to go downhill very, very quickly after the World Cup is Napoli. And I'm kind of sad that Napoli are going to go downhill because it's guaranteed. If I say it, it's going to happen, guys. This is gospel, and I'll explain why it's gospel a little bit later on the podcast. I'm actually quite soothsayer when it comes to football. But Napoli, who are absolutely killing it, they actually lost their first game of the season this morning against Liverpool, a team we'll get to in a little bit as well. But they're killing it. They're killing it. It's hard to not love the way they're playing. It's hard to not love the players that they've got in their team are just performing to a super duper high level. Really, really cool players as well. Guys that you know that have come somewhat from obscurity. Victor Osimhen, a lot of hype behind him. It's good to see him kind of fulfilling his potential. This guy's like, when you watch him, he looks like a kid in the under-16s playing against kids in the under-8s when he plays, especially in Serie A. He just towers head and shoulders above every other player in terms of speed, size, strength, vertical leap. He's awesome. Kvaratskhelia, I mean, nothing more really needs to be said about that guy other than like Juve were about to sign him a couple of seasons ago until Fabio Paratici went to Spurs. So, yay! Loved that for us. Kim Min-jae, great player. Zielinski, all of their players are really clicking, and I think nobody deserves it more than Luciano Spalletti, the coach of Napoli, who he's had a fairly journeyman career, but he is a little bit of a maverick in terms of the style of football that he plays. But I first saw Spalletti when he was coach of Roma in the mid-2000s. This is a genius, guys. This is a guy who invented the modern day false nine. Nobody had ever done it before. When he was at Roma, he put Francesco Totti, who is not a number nine, in that position and had the strikerless formation. And since then, a whole bunch of teams and clubs have used that, and he really deserves a little bit of silverware to go along with his reputation. Unfortunately, he ain't gonna get it. It's really impressive that they've done it so far this season, even though they've sold so many of their huge stalwarts like Koulibaly, Insigne, Fabian Ruiz, all gone, and yet they've somehow gotten even better as a unit. It's nice to see as a neutral. I am not a neutral, and I hate them for a number of reasons. Not this particular Napoli team, but just Napoli as a philosophy, as an ethos. I hate them to my core. They are Juve's big rivals. They consider themselves these I don't know, usurpers from the south that are these underdogs, but they're really not. I mean, they used mafia links to sign Maradona in the late 80s, and Aurelio De Laurentiis. I'm better at pronouncing these Italian names, guys. Aurelio De Laurentiis, who is their owner, is a total fuckhead. You saw what he said in the summer about never wanting to sign an African player again unless they sign a contract that says they will never represent their country at the African Cup of Nations, because it's annoying that his team gets shelled every single season. Blow me, bro. Straight up racism from this guy. It's very, very easy to hate this team, which is why it doesn't pain me at all to say that the wheels after the World Cup are going to come just careening off the cart. They're just gonna fall apart. I would be surprised to even see them stay in the top four in Serie A. Whoever faces all they need to do is face one PSG or a Bayern Munich or somebody in the next round of the Champions League, and they are gone. And basically, there's two reasons for this. Number one, Spalletti's teams always shit themselves. It happens to his Inter team, it happened to his Napoli team last season, it happened to his Zenit St. Petersburg teams, it happened to his Roma teams when they were the challengers to Inter, who were just dominating Serie A in the late 2000s. His teams always shit themselves. Unfortunately, they just run out of gas. And the second thing is that this Napoli team seems to be on like a real roll. They seem to be on this snowball trajectory, this unstoppable machine that is just keep going and going and going. And they're reliant on momentum. And they've been reliant on momentum for the entire season. That momentum is going to get halted very, very quickly, because basically none of their players are featuring at the World Cup. Georgia aren't there. Kvaratskhelia is not going to be playing. Osimhen's Nigeria, not going to be there. Lobotka for Slovakia, not going to be featuring. And Italy, not even in the fucking World Cup, so you're not going to see Di Lorenzo, you're not going to see Politano, you're not going to see these guys, you're not going to see Raspadori, and Mario Ruiz probably not going to play for Portugal. So all these players are going to atrophy a little bit over that month, and when they come back, they're just not going to be able to discover the same luster and the same magic. So Napoli, Almiron going down, and the final call for the wheels coming off is going to be a big one. It's going to be a rogue one. This is going to be my hot take. This could be the biggest sitter that I miss for the entirety of this podcast. But I'm going to say that Manchester City's wheels are going to come off after the World Cup. Yeah, that's right. They're going to suffer a major slump coming back into it in January for basically the opposite reason to Napoli. It's because all of their players are going to be featuring at the World Cup quite heavily. If you look at the Brazil, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, England teams, I mean, basically only Erling Haaland is not going to be featuring at the World Cup for his team. Ederson probably won't play ahead of Alisson for Brazil in the World Cup. But other than that, we're talking about the entirety of Man City's two starting 11s that they just seem to be able to roll out every single week will be featuring quite heavily at the World Cup, which means injuries, disruptions, heartbreak. Some of them making it really far into the World Cup are going to suffer exhaustion. They're going to come back into it. Their rhythm's going to be off. And Pep Guardiola's whole ethos, his whole thing relies on this rhythm just staying in place. This is not just a prediction. This is something that I wish, like I hope it I hope it happens to them. Not because I hate Man City, which I do, but I hate Man City at the moment, especially because of this fucking hoodie that I see Pep wearing every single game. You might have noticed this hoodie. It's like this weird brown. It's got a giant P on this side. It's got a zip, and he's wearing this brown hoodie. He's wearing these baggy jeans and sneakers. Like, he looks like the worst, the tackiest of mid-2000s fashion. He looks like he's been designed in Ed Hardy's wet dream. He wears to the games like something that I would wear to a party when I was 15 if anybody ever invited me to one. Like, he's just taken it too far. We loved him with the waistcoats and the scarves and the turtlenecks and the coats. We loved his fashion 10 years ago, but now I think he's just trying to be cooled out a little bit too much. So this hoodie, it really rubs me the wrong way. And you just know that he's wearing, like, it's got this big P on it. And you know that the P, it stands for Puma. Puma is the major sponsor for the kits for Manchester City. But you know that he's relishing wearing this because it's a big P for Pep. So yeah, I'm hoping that Man City come smashing straight to the ground after the World Cup. On the flip side, I think we're going to see some of the big boys who have been absolutely dog shit this season coming back with a vengeance after the World Cup, starting with Liverpool. See, a lot of idiots online have been trying to work out exactly what's been happening to the boys from Merseyside this season. They've been pretty shit, but when you boil it down, it's pretty simple. Liverpool's entire ethos under Jurgen Klopp from the beginning has been, we run our dicks off. The dicks are off. That's what it is. That's what's happening, guys. It's very simple. They've run out of gas. The engine has been thrashed. They played every single possible fixture last season. Like, it was actually highly predictable that this would happen this season. It's nothing to do with Mane leaving. It's nothing to do with Salah's production going down. It's nothing to do with Darwin Núñez not all of a sudden turning into, like, it was crazy when you look at, like, the statistics of the two people's careers that people were even comparing Erling Haaland to Darwin Núñez. It's just totally unfair, and I feel bad for the guy because he's, like, not a bad player, but he's not going to just all of a sudden resurrect a pretty beaten down team. And it's not because VVD or TAA aren't, like, coming up with the defensive goods that they have in the past. Virgil van Dijk is just a little bit not as good as he was before, and Trent Alexander-Arnold is exactly the same player that he's always been. But they will come back. They will come storming back. There's just too much quality in this team, and they will make the top four. That's going to be my prediction. The World Cup is gonna just completely rearrange this. Barcelona is another one. Barcelona spent wads of monopoly money in the summer, just completely rebuilding this squad, and yet they haven't made the round of 16 of the Champions League for the second year in a row. Some might say that Xavi isn't a good coach. I don't know. They've been playing pretty good in La Liga. They're second to a Real Madrid team that is, certifiably the best team in the world, and they're keeping up with them neck and neck. They only just lost to them. I think they'll be fine. They have just way too much quality in the team. And being in the Europa League will suit them because the pressure will be off. And I would say they're a pretty good shout to win the whole thing. One team that they're not going to be facing in the Europa League, and I could be proven wrong in by the time the episode is even aired, but I am going to say it right now. This season's biggest underperforming European giant. Let me rephrase that actually. This season's shittest big team is not going to be in the Europa League with them, and that is my beloved Juventus, because I predict that PSG are going to spank them tomorrow morning in Italy, and that Maccabi Haifa are going to get some kind of a result against Benfica, which will crash Juventus out of all European competitions this season, and so they're not even going to be in the Europa League. I could do an entire 1-hour podcast on what the fuck is happening to Juve, but I don't want this to be the Juve cast, which the Kevin Lasagna podcast occasionally turned into, so that's not going to happen. Although it might at some point. We'll see. Not today. Let's just say that Juve are currently without 10 first-team regulars. So I think the medical staff there, or something that's going into the grass, I don't fucking know. But every season we seem to see Juve cop more and more injuries. That's not to say that Max Allegri isn't out of his depth and past it, but this is like a very, very sad state of affairs when it comes to the injuries. And they're resorting to play youth team players, one of which scored an absolutely beautiful goal this weekend against Lecce to win it. And that is, of course, Nicola Fagioli. Nicky Beans, my boy. This is why my clairvoyance cannot be in question, because I had a dream that Nicola Fagioli scored the winner the night before he scored the winner. That's right. I'm dreaming about Nicola Fagioli. He's 21. It's legal. Fuck you. Nicola Fagioli is the player that I have elevated the most in my career mode for Juve, and I love him. I think he's just a really unique and talented player, and it'd be interested to see how his career develops. Max Allegri's had the same fucking excuses from the start of the season. We planned this team with Pogba and Chiesa. Yeah, bro, that excuse is bullshit because Pogba got injured in the first friendly that they had pre-season when there was 6 or 7 weeks left of the transfer window and pre-season to plan differently. And Chiesa's been injured with an ACL injury since last season. It just doesn't check out. Having said that, I am the optimist to the end when it comes to my club. Even with Max Allegri terrorist ball, I do predict that they're going to crash out of all European competition, and that is going to work in their favour. Because they're going to win the league. They're going to come storming back. They're going to go on some ridiculous run with Chiesa and Pogba coming back and being the forefront of the team and injecting new life into this depleted, just depressed squad. And they're going to win the league. And frankly, they're going to win the league because they don't really have any competition this year. Serie A has been really, really interesting because it looks like nobody and everybody really want to win it, but I don't think that there are any actual contenders. You see, Atalanta have no depth. Napoli, as we've already spoken about, are going to absolutely implode. The Rome clubs are going to go far in the Europa League, and they don't really have the depth either. Inter are a one-man team. Nicola Barella, best player in the league by far, but they have Simone Inzaghi, who is just as much of a shit-yourself merchant as Spalletti is. He's never, all of his teams have always shat themselves, whether his Lazio teams or his Inter teams of the last 2 seasons. Milan are Juve's only competition at that point. They're good. I love Stefano Pioli, and Rafael Leao is probably at his best the best player in the league, but he is not the most consistent player in the league because they lost to Torino on the weekend, and Leao when he's good is just unplayable, but Leao when he's bad, he's so bad, man. There was one miss that he did in the first half that was like it looked like something that I would do. Genuinely, it was just like a side scuff. The guys passed him across the goal, and he just side scuffed it, and it almost went out for a throw in. So when he's young, he's developing, and in a couple of years he'll be at the forefront of some of the best players in the world. But for now, he's not good enough to carry Milan to a league title when they have a real contender, and Juve are going to be a real contender. I feel it. I feel it in my soul. I just know. They lost to Torino, who are our neighbors. They did a good job. They're a very hard team to play against. They're just really rough and tumble, like their manager Ivan Juric, who copped a red card for being just a rough bastard. Speaking of copping red cards, we saw Gattuso not get sent off this weekend as manager for Valencia. He still has been sent off this season as manager of Valencia more times than any player in La Liga this season, which, that's just Gattuso. We did a Kevin Lasagna Appreciation Special on Gennaro Gattuso because he's a fucking lunatic. You can go back and check that out on iTunes and Spotify. Spain is a funny old league with their rules. They're just I don't really like La Liga. I think it's kind of slow and kind of boring. But I also kind of think the rules must be a little bit different there, because I watched the highlights of Mallorca versus Espanyol, and there was a shout for a penalty towards the end of the match where Angel Rodriguez for Mallorca got absolutely fucking cleaned up by the defender from Espanyol, to the point where his coach got sent off for screaming and shit. And no penalty at all. Like, this is the clearest foul in the box I've ever seen. Go and check it out if you want, if you have Optus Sport or whatever. No penalty given. So I'm not sure. And they did VAR, like they did the whole thing. So I'm perplexed as to what's going on over there in Spain. But we'll figure it out. That's it. You liked how you're not doing it like we used to do it, like segment to segment to segment. It's just going to be like organic flow. But I do have one kind of like last overarching, like the one final thought that didn't really fit into anywhere in the rest of the podcast that I'm going to end it with. And it's going to be. I mean, we'll see what you think. I'm not really the one that says what it's going to be like, but I couldn't sleep the other day, so I watched Fulham versus Everton, which proper cure for insomnia. Pretty drab 0-0 draw, and like Fulham are a pretty good team. Everton are, they're a Frank Lampard team, but I just love Jordan Pickford. I love him so much. No, I'm not insinuating that he's like the best goalkeeper in the world. He's a pretty good goalkeeper. He had an absolute blinder against Fulham, but I love him. I love him for so many reasons. I love, like, he's got cool guy, slick hair, even though he's, doesn't look like a cool guy. I love that he looks a little bit like Professor McGonagall. And just because he has so much character, like the way he commands the back line, he's always shouting and shit, especially when he plays for England. There's so much shouting, you can hear it just like bellowing across the 6-yard box. He's so much character. Like, remember last year against West Ham, he had like printed on his water bottle all of the stats for all of the top 3 possible West Ham penalty takers. He just had the heat map for all their penalties printed on the water bottle. He's just, what a character, what a boon to the Premier League to have a character like Jordan Pickford. And what I love the most about him is that he's a throwback to my era of football. He's a throwback to the mid 2000s because he is England's number 1, but he plays for a shit team. In the late to mid 2000s, England's number 1 was always like Paul Robinson, who played for Spurs, and the Spurs were fucking not good in the mid 2000s. Rob Green for West Ham, David James, who proper world class goalkeeper, but he was playing for Portsmouth at the time. And I don't know, it reminds me of my favorite era of football, when you'd have like this Argentina team that had the likes of Juan Romano Riquelme, world class player, playing for Villarreal, all of their attacking players with Tevez, Crespo, a young Messi. You'd have guys in midfield like Javier Zanetti and Cambiaso, and just such an amazing team. And then they'd have Abondanzieri, who I think played in Argentina at the time, or for like Deportivo La Coruña, one of those teams, playing in goals. Like, you'd have world-class teams, shit goalkeeper. The best goalkeepers were like Buffon and Oliver Kahn and Jens Lehmann and Fabian Barthez. And I don't know, and Fabian Barthez, like, other than Man United, didn't really play for any huge teams either, as far as I know. So I just like love that. Nowadays you don't really have it. You got all of the big goalkeepers, they sort of tend to play for all of the really big teams. So I just like that. I like that about Jordan Pickford. He plays for a shit team. Everton is shit. It reminds me of like back in my day. And that's kind of leads me on to the last thing that I want to say today, is that next week we've got 2 weeks to the World Cup. The final kind of episode that I want to do before we do the actual World Cup analyses is going to be me like predicting the World Cup. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to do my predictions, and I'm going to, we'll see how much of you agree with me. But before that, I want to rank all of the World Cups that I've experienced in my lifetime. There have been 6. I don't count the 1994 World Cup because I was 2. So, sorry. We're gonna do that, and we're gonna rank the World Cups how I like them, and we'll see if you guys agree or disagree or whatever. So we're back, Mr. Sitter Podcast. We're back. If you like comedians talking about football with little anime characters standing next to them, then this is for you. I'm gonna be releasing lots of these, so join along. Let your friends know that I'm going to be watching every single game. So if you just want real quick analysis, I'm your guy. This has been the first episode of the Mr. Sitter podcast. And I redid the theme music for you. I redid the theme music. So let's play that theme music now. Goodbye.
If everything about me didn't give it away, I'm a soccer guy. I play against the computer only. Because if I lose and I throw a tantrum, the computer isn't going to send me messages all week calling me sad shit dick. Alright. But the higher teams are probably a little bit too advanced for the drills that I pinched off the FIFA loading screen.
Bro, Mo Salah is putting Egypt on the map.
You better start giving some energy and some love